maybe if I don't rev it so much, it'll actually move. Let me get the RPMs down. Yeah, I don't know.
Are we going to be able to get this back to the parking space?
I'm going to certainly do my best. Welcome to Buy or Bust, the game show where we are here at Dealers Auto Auction of the Rockies looking at 3 vehicles, tell you whether we will buy them or bust them, and then take a guess as to what they will go across the auction block at. And today, Case, what are we looking at?
We're looking at high mileage heroes. So as this video goes along, we're going to look at progressively higher and higher mileage machines. And yeah, it's no Tommy today, it's just me.
Yep, and well, this one has the highest number. It's not the first one we're gonna look at, so let's toss to that now. So first up, we are looking at this guy here, which isn't a car you would normally associate with high miles, but this one does have some particularly high miles. What are we looking at, Case?
It's a 2001 Audi TT with 224,000 miles, and to your point, Brendan, typically a lot of people, us included, think of German cars as not being very reliable in the long term, especially from this era, but this might be one to prove that possibly wrong.
So under the hood of the Audi TT is their 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, and you could get 2 different variations of it. So the entry-level variation had about 180 horsepower routed to the front wheels. You could get the optional all-wheel drive, which was just kind of a halodeck system. It wasn't really Audi's true quattro all-wheel drive system. And this one is the 180 horsepower version, and let me show you why I know that. So this has the single exhaust outlet out the back. Now the 225 horsepower version had dual exhaust out the back, and that's really the only way I know to truly differentiate him, because I think the only other mechanical difference is I think it had a bigger turbo case.
The other funny thing about this car is this has to be the roundest, most bubbly car I think I've ever seen. I mean, some of the earlier redesigned Beetles are up there as well. And of course, I mean, even the new TT is very rounded, but look at this. This is insane.
Well, you know, originally when these came out, they did not have this rear spoiler. And from what I understand, it actually made the car kind of unstable to drive. And so they ended up having to add this rear spoiler.
By far, the coolest thing about this era of the Audi TT is what's called the baseball glove interior. And you can see exactly why it's called that. It's these beautiful brown leather seats with this massive stitching. It looks like a baseball glove, hence the name. And the surprising thing about this is that this interior appears to have held up very well. Now, this is all anecdotal. One owner is not going to treat their car the same as another owner, but for this car having over 200,000 miles, this interior is in impressive condition, so it seems to have lasted really well. And there's a lot of cool design here. Not only the brown leather that's on the seats, you get it on the wheel, you get it on some grab handles on the shifter. There's a ton of aluminum in this interior. And in fact, Tommy was talking to one of the Audi guys, and if they tried to do as much aluminum as is in this interior in one of their modern TTs, it would make the car cost over $120,000 because it's so expensive to do all this aluminum.
So, Case, I noticed even these seat belts are brown. Now, they're not the exact same brown that's on the seats, but they do kind of match the steering wheel.
Yeah, I don't know if that's maybe because they're a little old, maybe a little tired. But man, yeah, like even your parking brake is wrapped in the same leather. It's got the same color stitching as the baseball stitching on these seats. I can't say it enough. I'm shocked how well this interior is held up.
A lot of people think that high mileage is like the death of things. Like, oh, I just can't buy it because it's got over 200,000 miles. And I mean, the whole point that I want to make with this video is that it's not just about the miles, it's about who owned it and how they maintained it.
Yeah.
And this is a clear example of a car that you wouldn't normally think is like something you would ever want to own with over 200,000 miles, but it seems really nice. The only issue I'm seeing is the top light is flashing at me, which I just don't know, maybe it's not secured properly.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, power tops can definitely be a pain, although is this even a power top or is this manual?
I don't know. It says here that we can press it and then...
Oh, do you rotate it?
Oh, look at that.
Oh, hey, look at that.
It goes down. It seems to work.
Sorta. Yeah, that works all right.
Look at that. So we're going to go topless for the rest of this review.
Other interesting thing is that this is not the only high mileage Audi TT that's here at the auction.
I know there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And what, is the other one also around 200?
Yeah, it's like 10,000 miles less than this, but I figured the baseball glove interior was more interesting for you guys.
Hell yeah.
But
now let's see how it accelerates.
yeah, we've got it here on the test track. I want to see what this 180 horsepower version does with 2 of us in here. Well, it's not.
I mean,
It's not fast, but it's also not slow.
Not bad.
Yeah.
No, I think it's actually decent even here at altitude. You could merge safely, not have no problems with someone running into the back of you because you're going so slow. And you're not going to surprise anyone with the acceleration, but it's decent. Now, Tommy brought up something interesting, which is that, and he knows a lot more about these cars than either of us do. He was surprised that there was a Nardo Gray TT with the baseball glove interior and this powertrain.
Yeah, especially considering it's front-wheel drive only. So this has to be either somebody put this in after the fact, or maybe, just maybe, it was just like a special order item where somebody was like, no, I don't need all that horsepower, but those baseball glove seats, I better get those.
Yeah. So either way, it's a pretty interesting vehicle that we have here. And I mean, it seems like it drives really well. You really wouldn't guess that this has got over 200,000 miles on it.
Not at all.
So to your point, I think it's a good example of what a driver who cares about their car and keeps up with it because they want to drive it so much, what that can do for a vehicle even at high miles.
Well, let's park it up and see whether we'll buy it or bust it.
Oh yeah.
All right, Case, so I'm curious to know what you think of the first generation Audi TT. Would you buy it or bust it?
I think this is a pretty cool car. I'm not an Audi TT guy, but I could put that aside for a vehicle like this with this cool interior for the right price. What about you?
I think that this is a buy all day. I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to find something at this price point that feels this special.
That's true.
I mean, with that really cool interior, all the aluminum on the inside, and just the exterior looks. I mean, there really isn't anything that kind of looks quite like this, and I think it truly is a special vehicle. But as far as price goes, now you see these with reasonable miles fetching as much as like $10,000 on the market today.
Especially with that interior.
Yeah, especially with this interior. But this one being over 200,000 miles, the base, front wheel drive, at a dealer auction, I think we're looking more like $5,000. What do you think?
I mean, $5,000 for an Audi with over 200,000 miles seems like kind of a lot. I am going to, it's tough because even that interior alone is worth a lot of money. I'm going to cut it down a little bit. I'm going to venture to say maybe more like 4.
All right, well, let's see who's right at the auction. All right, so first up was that Audi TT, and they opened asking $4,000, but it took it going down to $2,000 before it got a bid.
Really? I'm kind of surprised by that.
Yeah, so pretty darn low, but it actually ended up bidding up to a final selling price of $2,400.
Okay, so both of us were pretty far off on that one.
And I was kind of kicking myself for not being in the buying mood that day because $2,400 for a baseball glove Audi TT. I don't care if it's got 220-something thousand miles on it.
That's a nice car.
That is a good deal.
Well, that puts me closer, so that's a good start.
Yeah, we'll see what's next. And for our next vehicle, we have probably the most controversial generation of the Wrangler. What are we looking at, Case?
Well, this is a 2011 Wrangler, so it's got the 3.8 liter V6, and I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about that engine. The other interesting thing about this Wrangler is that there's 444,000 on the odometer, but it's actually not the highest mileage vehicle we're going to look at today because that's 444,000 kilometers.
Yeah, but let's get into it and see what it's all about. So this is probably the most controversial part of this generation Wrangler, and this has the 3.8 liter V6, and here in my opinion is the biggest problem with it. Although it's a relatively large V6, it only puts out 202 horsepower, Case. And for a vehicle of this size, it just seems woefully underpowered.
Especially up here at altitude. The other thing about these V6s is that they're not known to be the toughest of V6s that you could get in these Jeeps. I mean, the later Pentastars are actually pretty durable, but I know a number of people have had oil consumption issues on these engines.
Yeah, so these are certainly no 4-liter from some of the earlier Wranglers. That's probably the best engine you could possibly get in any of the Wranglers. And this may rank as either the worst or one of the worst, but this being a 2011, I think they had sorted through a lot of the issues, but it still only has 202 horsepower. But maybe there's something more redeeming on the interior.
Well, I'll tell you what's not the worst thing in the world, Brendan. It is a 6-speed, which is pretty cool. Again, it's not a performance car, especially with 200 horsepower, but it is fun in an old school off-roader, rowing some of your own gears, these big, long throws on the shifter. As for listen to the blend door. As for the rest of this interior, it does look like it's done about 300,000 miles, which is what this 444,000 kilometers translates into, about 275, but it looks a little ugly.
Yeah, it's not in the best of shapes, that's for sure. But I mean, you have to give credit to it. These engines get a lot of slack for how unreliable they are, but it has to have at least some reliability for making it this amount of miles.
It's done a lot of miles, so that's to its credit.
But let's take it out for a spin and see if it drives as well as it should.
Look at that. The seatbelt's got dreadlocks. Oh my God.
It's like disintegrating. And mine
oh, it's not
won't
too
lock
happy
into
either.
place, so
They really are some long throws on that shifter. And there goes the blend door again.
yeah, it definitely needs a blend door. Don't worry, Case, no one's gonna break into your Land Rover.
To my crummy Land Rover? That's good, because it's got my Mac in there.
Oh, yeah. Then they might, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
This one's, it's not the worst one I've ever driven, to be honest with you.
No.
But it does have a broken windshield. It does have the ABS and traction control light on. That blend door is just like constantly clicking and stuck.
All the time.
So I apologize for the clicking in the background if you guys are hearing that.
Oh,
but
they're definitely hearing it. I can promise you that, because I'm going to edit this, and I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, the camera's going to pick that up.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I mean, it drives okay. There's a lot of neglected things on this vehicle, but for having almost 300,000 miles, it seems all right.
Well, I'm gonna hold on since I don't have a seatbelt case.
Yeah, 200 horsepower, dude. Yeah. Watch out.
Okay, you know you can floor it on this test track, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it gets going if you really rev it out.
This one, I will say, when you revved it out, it doesn't sound particularly good.
God, no, it doesn't sound good at all.
Like those 4 liters actually, you know, it's a straight 6, but those are straight 6. Yeah, they're straight 6, but
yeah,
I think they actually sound pretty decent when you rev them out. This just, I don't know, it just kind of has like a buzzy, tinny noise to it, and it just doesn't sound very good.
I'll tell you what though, I am liking the ride quality on this vehicle. I think these springs and shocks are just worn out the right amount to make this float around like a Cadillac, so I don't hate that.
You clearly haven't driven a Cadillac in a while.
Yeah, you definitely have, so you'd be the one to say.
Well, let's park it up and see whether we'll buy it or bust it.
All right, Brendan, so with this vehicle, what do you say? Would you buy it or bust it?
I have to bust it. Yes, I know these are cool Wranglers, and I'm sure there's a devoted following out there that would love to have a Wrangler like this, even with this high of mileage. If I'm going out on a trail, I want something that I know is gonna get me home. Yeah. That I'm not gonna have to pay for that expensive tow, and I just can't trust this one to make it home. What do you think? Would you buy it or bust it?
To its credit, it's done 300,000 miles, so it's been reliable enough for someone to drive it that long. So to me, reliability isn't as much the concern. The concern is more around the fact that I still don't think this is gonna go as cheap as I would like it to, which would cause me to bust it, and that brings me to price. I'm gonna guess that this, even in the condition that it's in, it's probably gonna go around, I'm gonna say around 6 grand.
6 grand for a nearly 300,000 mile Wrangler?
People pay a lot of money for these Jeeps, especially here in Colorado.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't. I think that this is gonna be, closer to $5,000.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, well let's find out.
So next up was that Jeep. And, well, it had an open asking price of $6,000, so you were truly in tune with the seller of that vehicle.
Right.
But it took going down to about $4,000 before anybody was willing to bid on it, and then it had a slurry of action bidding back up to its final selling price of $6,000.
Oh, man, I'm on fire.
Yeah, so I guess you're going to end up winning this episode, but hopefully I can get a consolation prize with that broken down next vehicle.
Let's find out.
All right, and for our final car, we're looking at a minivan?
Well, it's more of a real van. This is a GMC Safari, which is pretty cool because it's all-wheel drive, and there's really not that many all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vans out there on the market, especially not ones that are affordable. But tell me about the miles.
Yeah, this one's got 319,000 miles on it. And would you know, my grandma actually owned one of these for quite a while. And she loved hers. I mean, she had the Chevy Astro van, which is basically the same thing.
Yeah.
But she loved hers. It treated her well. And I mean, it seems like this one survived all the 300 and some thousand miles on it pretty good. But let's get into it. There has to be a way to open you. Doesn't want to open, Case.
Man, this is one of those where the juice is just not worth the squeeze. It's the most energy anyone's ever put into trying to show somebody a 4.3.
Yeah, well, to show someone a minivan engine. I'm giving up and I'm just going to close that hood. But if I could open the hood, hiding under it would be a 4.3 liter V6 pumping out about 190 horsepower. Yeah, it's not much, but the fact is that you could get this with either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. So when GM came out with this, they were kind of poking fun a bit at the Chrysler minivan, saying that life is just too big to own a minivan. And they were trying to position this as something more than just a minivan by it being highly configurable, with being able to have as little as 2 seats or as much as seating for 8, as well as rear-wheel drive, as well as the optional all-wheel drive, which at this time, I think when these first came out, the Chrysler didn't offer.
Now, as far as the interior goes, there is not a ton to brag about. In fact, I'd rather not sit in this any more than I have to. After 300,000 miles over that, and a couple decades of some pretty hard use, this is definitely showing its wear. I mean, this is kind of what you would expect to see from a vehicle of this age, but it is a somewhat interesting interior. The funkiest thing to me, look at the dash hump on the passenger side. That is the strangest shape I've ever seen in a dashboard. I will say, it is spacious.
Yeah, it's pretty spacious. It's pretty utilitarian. Yeah, this one hasn't held up very well, but very few vehicles over 300,000 miles are going to hold up fairly well. I mean, the fact that this is even still running with how misused it's been, I think is impressive all on its own.
That is, and definitely duct tape is doing some heavy lifting in this interior, but it looks like it's still probably pretty comfortable if you can get your mind past the way it looks and smells.
Yeah, well, let's take it out and see how it drives. Come on, Case, I know you can just sit in the car. It's okay, you're wearing pants, right?
Dude, this thing is gross. Maybe I'm being a little dramatic for camera, but yeah, these interiors, I mean, they can hold up to a lot, but 320,000 miles is more than a lot.
Yeah, this one hasn't been well loved. It's got the brake light on, it's got the ABS light on, and it also has the check engine light, and it runs pretty rough and makes some terrible noises when I turn the steering wheel. I know, we were talking about earlier. Oh, that's transmission slipping bad. Yep, that was a pretty good slip there. We've talked about that the miles don't matter as much as the owners, but as it so happens, and it's not necessarily surprising, the higher mileage vehicles that we've gone and checked out have gotten progressively worse inside, out, and in the way they drive. That's true. I guess as the mileage has gone up, these vehicles have gotten worse. But I will say, I mean, I own a 300,000 mile GMC Yukon. Yeah. And it looks great. Like, it looks like it's got 150,000 miles on it.
My truck has 260,000 miles on it, and it looks fantastic as well. So it's definitely possible to keep things nice if you keep up with them. This one has not been kept up with.
Yeah, there you go. There's the trick. Just buy from automotive journalists like us, right?
Maybe.
Well, I've got it here on the test track. Now, that transmission slipping leads me to believe we're not going to go very fast, but I'm still going to floor it anyways.
Yeah, let's floor it. Wow.
Oh, that is really bad. There's 10 miles an hour.
What's your guess for what we get up to? We've got time to make a guess.
30? Because that's 30 right there, and I'm at the brakes.
Yeah, because who knows how good the brakes are? Probably not very.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why somebody decided to give up on this vehicle. Who knows how many owners it's had, but definitely owners that spent a lot of time in it. But once you've got transmission slipping that bad, it's about time to give up.
Yeah, this one has clearly given its entire life to somebody. I mean, wait, maybe if I don't rev it so much, it'll actually move. Let me get the RPMs down. Yeah, I don't know. Are
we going to be able to get this back to the parking space?
I'm going to certainly do my best, but we're crawling along at a blistering 2 miles an hour currently.
I think that acceleration that we just did might be one of its last. Not that this is going to do anything, but what if we go into park and then back into drive?
Let's try that. Okay, it went into park.
It's like it's like resetting your iPhone.
Oh, okay. Come on, GMC.
Yeah, I mean...
Maybe, here, wait. I can manually shift it. Let's see if it'll go into 1.
Yeah.
This is unfortunate.
I mean, not that any of this... I wonder if it's got any trans fluid in it at all.
Yeah, it might not.
Well, then will
it reverse back? Well, we can reverse. So we just have to reverse back.
Well, should we buy or bust it where we are?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's buy or bust it from the inside here.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but this one is going to be a bust for me.
Gee, why would you bust this car? It's so
I'm
good.
just not a van guy, I guess. Yeah, so obviously some issues with this unit. So I'm going to bust it. I'd be surprised. I mean, would that qualify this as a non-runner?
No, it runs. They just may go backwards through the auction block. Or
that
they may
would be
push
spectacular.
It.
Do you think this would go for any more than $500? That's
so is that your guess? Is that your guess?
$500.
Yeah, so I'm going to bust this as well. If you have a properly working one of these that's in good shape, then yes, I would say buy it. I wouldn't buy this one. I think that your guess is a little high. I think it's gonna go for $400.
Well,
so yeah, I guess we'll go with that. We'll go with $400. I guess let's I don't know, I'm just gonna keep backing around a lot. I guess we'll toss.
Yeah, I mean, we got a ways to go before we get this back to where it's supposed to be parked.
So let's toss to the auction and see who's closer.
In case you're wondering, Brennan and I both informed the auction employees that the transmission went out on this GMC after we drove it, and this car was part of the donate section rather than a vehicle that belonged to any dealership, so it was pretty apparent that it had issues before we drove it, and those issues reared their head once we took it on the track.
All right, and last but not least was that GMC Safari that we couldn't even get it back to its parking spot because that thing was so rough.
Yeah. No, I think this one is last and least by every measure.
Yeah, for sure. So now I actually missed this one. I got to the auction a little bit late on the day, but I did ask a dealer friend as to what exactly happened with it going across the auction block, and he said that they ended up having to push it across. So at the auction, they have these vehicles with giant tires on the front of it. They were using a 4Runner for this particular one. And the 4Runner was just kind of bumping it through the auction block. So people could see it driving by, and it was running, he said, as it was driving by, but it wasn't moving on
under
its own power.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they didn't reverse it across the auction block.
That would have been really good.
Yeah. But there wasn't really much action on it. So it basically opened with an asking price of $1,000, which I think was a bit ambitious.
Bold. Yeah.
Maybe with a good working transmission, you'd be able to get that $1,000, but it took it going down to $400 before it got a bid, and then it got another bid at $500, and then the other guy literally, like from what I'm told, walked out of the room and came back and said, "I'll do half," and so he ended up winning it at $550. Which would mean that you literally swept the floor with me in this episode. So congratulations, Case. For your, was this your second time on Buy or Bust?
Yeah, this is my second Buy or Bust, so that's not bad.
You wiped the floor with me on it,
yeah,
so congrats.
I'm 1-1, so I'll take it.
All right. Well, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Thank you so much for watching. This has been a blast. And if you like these, please give it a thumbs up and let us know in the comment section below what your guesses were. It's always fun to have you guessing along with us.